said you want me to body slam.
At an event, Hulkster would ask his loyalists if they want him to body slam Kamala Harris. The music would come in as he asks, "Is Kamala a chameleon?" and follow that up with, "Is she Indian?" After a mixture of yes and no answers, he holds up his hand and utters "how," which once again proves the following. Hulk Hogan is not only a bigot, but his IQ is low. He equates Harris's background being Indian when he said, "how?" a gesture referring, let's be clear, to Native Americans.
Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is only on the ticket because she is a black woman?
Well, I can say no. I think it's maybe a little bit different. So I've known her a long time indirectly, not directly very much. And she was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she black?
She has always identified as a black woman. She went to a historically black college.
I respect either one, but she obviously doesn't, because she was Indian all the way, and then all of a sudden she made a turn and she became a black person.
Just to be clear, sir, do you believe that
I think somebody should look into that too when you ask continue in a very hostile, nasty tone.
To be clear, what Hogan is doing is repeating Donald Trump's very same wording, but he does not have the brain power to understand it. But for his leader,
I will tell you right now, they don't look like Indians to me. And you look, now, they don't look like Indians to me, sir.
Thank God that's not the test of whether or not people have rights in this country or not, whether or not they pass your look test.
And they don't look like the Indians. Now, maybe we say politically correct or not politically correct. They don't look like Indians to me.
Even about myself, if I was starting off today, I would love to be a well-educated black, because I really believe they do have an actual advantage today.
There's a history with this stuff. Per The Hollywood Reporter, Hogan made the remarks while speaking at an event in Ohio, where he was promoting his new beer. Now, that beer brand, as we have covered previously, has also come under fire.
Hulk Hogan fired a brand ambassador because she was black. We already know how Hulk Hogan feels about black women dating one of his children. So we already know that. That recording's out there. Influencer Essence, Janai, has made allegations against Hulk Hogan that she was fired from her position as a brand ambassador for Hogan's, quote, real American beer, end quote, business due to her being black. According to this influencer via her TikTok, her contract was supposed to last a week. But after promoting the brand for just one day on July 2nd, Hogan canceled the contract, okay? So she revealed that she was replaced immediately by other brand ambassadors on July 3rd who were white. She also shared a text message from Hogan's team stating that Hogan wanted to cancel the events completely. Quote, her agent wrote, "Essence, you didn't do anything wrong at all. In fact, I'm sure you did great. But this client wants us to cancel the rest of the event this week. I'm really sorry." So she replied, "Oh my God, what happened? Are they only taking me off of the events, or are they canceling the events completely?" Her agent replied, "All the rest of the events are canceled completely."
The influencer they chose, Essence Janae, posted a TikTok with the caption, "Hulk Hogan, thanks for making it clear that you don't work with black brand ambassadors." Janae would take screenshots and post online the influencers who took her place. See if you could spot the difference. Hogan and his team saw the backlash and released a statement denying that Essence Janae was fired because of her race. They laid blame at the agency, not the beer brand. Paul Scheer would have fun with the Hulkster and his beer brand.
This crazy idea for a beer. I see the whole country being divided and diverse, but I get an idea for a beer that it doesn't matter if you're a Republican, you're a Democrat, it doesn't matter what sex you are, it doesn't matter what race you are, where you're from, what you believe in. I've got a beer that's going to bring America back together one beer at a time. And it's called Hulk Hogan's Real American Beer, brother.
Okay, sure. I mean, it's a broad statement. Doesn't matter if you're Republican, doesn't matter if you're Democrat, doesn't matter if you're straight, doesn't matter if you're gay, doesn't matter if you're a man or you're a woman.
We all want a good life. We want our family, our friends. We want to have the borders closed. We want.
Wait. He just snuck in. We want the border. He wants the borders closed. And he sneaked that one in. Oh my God.
And at the end of the day, we want God back in our schools and in our churches and in our life.
Holy cow. We all want God back in our lives. I don't want to get killed at the gas pump. I just want mandatory prayer at the beginning of every school day. Oh my gosh. I mean, I was on board. I was like on board and I thought it was maybe just a little short-sighted. Now, holy cow, that was, woo.
Here's the thing. For Hulkster, racism is not necessarily a thing of the past.
Hogan is heard on the tape, which was recorded in 2006, talking about his daughter Brooke, who he accused of sleeping with an African American. I mean, I am a racist to a point. But then, when it comes to nice people and whatever, then says, I mean, I'd rather, if she was going to I'd rather have her marry an 8-foot worth $100 million, like a basketball player. Guess we're all a little racist.
What we saw in that tape is exactly what 21st century racism looks like. You may like black people and be friendly to black children, but you don't want your child to marry a black person.
And also, at a previous rally held in Boise, Idaho, the Hulkster would pose with a man who has literal schmozzy tattoos. If you want to know the meaning behind these symbols, check out our clip on demand. Fast forward to present day. As we know, Madam Vice President Harris's mother was from India and her father is Jamaican, but the Hulkster, after saying this stuff, had pulled the ultimate, that was not me, that was the beer talking line to his followers. But the damage, of course, was already done. His team has been contacted for comment, as you see here. They are yet to respond, hoping that it'll just all blow over. Via the New Republic, Hogan's comments are also further proof that all of MAGA seems to have a problem recognizing biracial people. During Trump's interview with the National Association of Black Journalists last month, the former prez stated that for years, Harris, quote, was Indian all the way, and then suddenly she made a turn and she became a black person. That is so incredibly stupid. In other news, it's another tough day for the keep politics out of sports crowd. Per the Columbus Dispatch, while most attendees were wearing wrestling memorabilia, some wore Make America Great Again hats. Along with Trump gear, they would ask the Hulkster to sign them, and he obliged. Let's also not forget.
You and Hulk were once good friends.
Yeah.
What's the likelihood of that ever being repaired?
Never. And he's the one that ratted me to Vince when I tried to unionize. I found that out under federal deposition when Vince was put under sworn, and he didn't hesitate at all. I told my lawyer the story, and in deposition you could ask about anything. And so I wanted to know who ratted me in the locker room, because there were no agents, no one from the office was in there when I did it. So it had to be one of the boys. And when my attorney said, Mr. McMahon, has there ever been a union in wrestling? And Vince said, no. He said, has anyone ever tried to? And Vince said, well, I think Jesse Ventura spouted his mouth off about it once before. And my attorney said, did you hear Mr. Ventura? No. Well, then how do you know he did? With no hesitation, Vince went, Hulk Hogan told me. And I didn't show any emotion, but I almost tipped over in the chair because he was my friend.
Like Trump, he is a union buster, as Jesse the Body Ventura explained to Graham Bensinger some years ago. Of course, Jesse the Body Ventura, former governor of Minnesota, a libertarian, has endorsed the Harris-Walz ticket and has spoke highly rather of the governor, Tim Walz. Here's another thing I found. There were some reports that Hogan, along with fellow RNC speaker, influencer Amber Rose, and one half of Ray Shremmen, Sway Lee, were involved in some crypto schemes. There is somewhat of a pattern here. And we do know that the biz bros and the tech bros are in on Donald Trump. So will they potentially need his help if there is to be litigation down the line involving them? Maybe. Are they trading their endorsements for help down the line? Maybe. There is a pattern there as well, as we have seen from some other celebrities. What I will say is this. Hulk Hogan saying this, doing this, uttering these lines shows that he has not learned from those tapes that came out in the Gawker lawsuit. And again, if you want to know more about the Gawker lawsuit, check out our videos on demand. But what it shows to me is that you can't teach this old dog new tricks. And he is going to be a loyalist through and through, because the guy who bankrolled his entire lawsuit against Gawker, Peter Thiel, is also in for Donald Trump, in for J.D. Vance. They know each other well. They have an affinity for one another. And they also believe that democracy should not really be a thing. Some of their ideas are insane, but they share them. And that is why Thiel, who previously said he doesn't get political, doesn't want to be political, has thrown wads of cash behind J.D. Vance and Donald Trump, which also, very quickly, shows another wrinkle to this, which is Michael Flynn is really peeved at the Vance pick because he thought that he could potentially be the VP pick. Do I think that? No. But it is very interesting to see this internal civil war in MAGA world, where the Fuenteses and the Michael Flynns are really upset at the Vance pick. Meanwhile, Trump knows where his bread is buttered, and that is through his donors, which he badly needs at this point in time, especially when they are down in the polls. Peter Thiel is one of many who will flood cash into their campaign, and I do believe it was a trade-off there.
There is a very close similarity between Hollywood and politics. The right wing knows it, the left wing does not.
This is legendary cartoonist, writer, and social commentator Aaron Magruder, famous for creating the comic strip and TV show The Boondocks. And he is about to deliver a masterclass in the most important aspect of American politics, optics.
Bush #1 was this nerdy guy that nobody liked. He didn't have any charisma. He had a lot of power. But he really wasn't very photogenic. He just wasn't that guy. So they said, okay, we're going to stick you with Reagan. Reagan was a movie star. Everybody liked Reagan, at least everybody white. Reagan made white people feel good.
It is truly disheartening that over 20 years have passed since this speech, and the Republicans used the same exact strategy in 2016 with Donald Trump. His celebrity persona helped launder his image enough with the general public that out-of-touch voters could look past his unfiltered bigotry and devastating policies and still vote for him.
Why? Image. Be smart enough to understand that it's image. Is it superficial? Yes. Is it silly? Yes. But it matters. I'm going to say this here because it's so important. Al Sharpton's haircut matters. It matters. Because he's running for president. It matters. Should it matter? No. But you know what? It does. That's image.
Absolutely spot on. Countless examples over the past 2 decades illustrate Magruder's argument perfectly, including
I call upon all nations to do everything they can to stop these terrorist killers. Thank you. Now watch this drive.
Why did you take issue with the suit?
Because you know the image makers in the White House. Here's a president coming out at such a serious moment where he should be addressing the country on such a serious matter, and he looked like he was on his way to a party at the Hamptons, which would have been fine if he addressed the issue at hand. But instead, he started talking about the economy, saying that was more important than Syria. And I just thought it detracted from the seriousness of the moment. To me, he could have won whatever he wanted if he addressed the issue head on. But to come out and start talking about the economy, to me, just detracted from the seriousness of the moment. And I thought the suit was a metaphor for his lack of seriousness.
And with that, I just have two more words to say. Obama out. Because Michael Jordan is the Michael Jordan of greatness. He is the definition of somebody so good at what they do that everybody recognizes it. That's pretty rare.
Michael J. Jordan.
All of the iconic clips we've seen so far show the power of the president's image and the importance of marketing them to the broader American public. In Bush's case, while being a demonic war criminal responsible for the deaths of millions of people behind closed doors, dodging the shoes thrown at him portrays strength and poise under pressure, while his infamous golf clip shows the American voter that he's just another average Joe when not in the Oval. But for anyone tuned in to politics and the news, we know this couldn't be farther from the truth, but we also know most people don't look past the images they see on their screens and refuse to dig deeper into issues that affect their lives. Barack Obama's examples are much more obvious, and because of his natural charisma, charm, and easygoing attitude, you probably did not think about the myriad of war crimes he signed off on himself. And that's not even talking about how he and the Dems capitulated to Republicans on the Affordable Care Act and failed to pass any meaningful, long-lasting climate change, immigration system reform, gun safety, and criminal justice reform legislation. And there may be no better image to summarize his cool guy appeal than giving Michael Jordan a Presidential Medal of Freedom, which in itself is a marketing device used by the president to gain some positive public relations, whether the recipient is deserving of the recognition or not.
So far, 10 House Democrats and 1 Senate Democrat have directly called on the president to exit the race.
Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer released a statement Wednesday night addressing the calls for Biden to step aside, saying, quote, "As I have made clear repeatedly, publicly and privately, I support President Biden and remain committed to ensuring Donald Trump is defeated in November."
Jen O'Malley Dillon, the campaign manager, has already put out a memo saying that the campaign realizes they are clear-eyed about what happened during this debate, but at the same time, they continue to argue that the numbers they're seeing shows this race as a toss-up. So I imagine that could be some of the argument that they make to the Senate Democrats, hoping to stem any more potential defections.
Every time there's a slip, a Vice President Trump instead of Harris, a Putin instead of Zelensky, people will focus on something that might not have even been noticed at past times. And to the extent over the coming months that all the attention is on whether he is fit and able to do this job instead of on Trump's lies, we will be set back. And I think that's why distinguished members of our caucus, the person who would head the Intelligence Committee, who would head the Armed Services Committee, a range of people that have no ideological conflict about the president, who are scattered across the country, are saying, we see the numbers. And Mr. President, just as you deal with the reality of conflict around the world, deal with the reality of the numbers here. And when you look at those numbers, we don't see a path forward for a Democratic Congress and a White House that is occupied by someone of President Biden's skill, but is instead occupied by a criminal and his gang.
And we're seeing the same thing today with congressional Dems and the Democratic voter base turning on President Joe Biden after we've seen the toll the past 4 years have taken on him. For us leftists, it was never just about the debate performance, but rather about how the Dem party operates, and Biden's inner circle have seen this coming, let's be real, and for one reason or another, refused to take action to find a different candidate before things got to this point. When Turkish clubs Fenerbahce and Trabzonspor squared off, chaos ensued. A fan would rush the field, square up, and attempt to take on multiple players of Fenerbahce. One defender put an end to it quickly. Players rushed over to break it up. However, more fans followed suit, turning Papara Park into a hand-fighting battleground. The scenes were ugly. The amount of violence, because the results of a game should never lead to these chaotic scenes. Suddenly, all hell would break loose. Security would attempt to impede the bum-rushing fans. Eventually, the Fenner players would attempt to leave the pitch with security escorting them out via Reuters, as reposted by The Guardian. Fenerbahce's coach said his players had not provoked fans and that his team was attacked, while his opposite number, Abdullah Avci, said the events at the end were upsetting, adding, "We are going through a period that Turkish football is now completely fed by chaos, where tensions are constantly high and where we cannot use the healing power of football." FIFA President Gianni Infantino, who has been awful in his role, would say all players have to be safe and secure to play the game, which brings such joy to so many people all over the world. I call on the relevant authorities to ensure that this is respected at all levels, and for the perpetrators of the shocking events in Trabzon to be held accountable for their actions. An investigation has officially been launched, but the damage is clearly done, not just to the sport, but also the Turkish League's two clubs, who have a history of violence when meeting on the pitch. Via Reuters once more. The incident comes after a series of other controversies in the Turkish league this season, including an attack on a ref by a club president, the postponement of a Turkish Cup final in Saudi Arabia, and several protests against refereeing decisions. The final score of the Turkish Super League match was Fenerbahce 3, Trabzonspor 2. Belgian international and Fener forward Michy Batshuayi netted the winner in the 87th minute. From The Athletic, Fenerbahce players had earlier been targeted by objects thrown from the crowd, with Trabzonspor players pictured appearing to plead with fans to cease. Ismail Kartal, Fenerbahce's coach, said after the match that he and his staff had also been struck by objects thrown from the crowd during the match. Kartal added that he had a swollen head and some of his staff had swollen jaws and burst lips. Writer Luke Boscher also alluded to another incident that happened in the league. Prior to going on air, the AP reported that Turkish police have indeed detained multiple individuals, 12 to this point, for their roles in the violent scuffles. Minister of Interior Ali Yerlikaya posted on Twitter, the person named CK threw a foreign object at Fenerbahce's coach during the match was detected during the match, caught and detained, and the necessary investigation was initiated against him. The first to jump onto the field after the match was HC. The hotel where the person named was staying was identified, and during the research conducted at the hotel, it was understood that the person had left the hotel. As a result of the studies carried out upon receiving information that he was heading towards Rise, the person was caught in Yamra district, and the necessary investigation was initiated against him. At the end of the match, the person who jumped onto the field took the corner flag and ran towards the players, said that the owner Sisi had entered the stadium. It was determined that the person who entered the field was not a holder, and during the investigations, the person named E.T. who entered the field was caught, and the necessary investigation was initiated. It was determined that the person who entered the field at the end of the match and beat Fenerbahce's goalkeeper was Obi. The person was caught, and the necessary investigation was initiated. The individuals named TCSKMOOET and AA, who shared posts on social media and invited the fans to the airport, were caught, and the necessary investigation was initiated against them. AS, BT, who were found to have entered the field as a result of the camera studies carried out after the completion. The persons named were caught, and the necessary investigation was initiated. Judicial and administrative proceedings have been initiated regarding the 12 individuals identified thus far. The investigations continue. If you can, support the network. Go to tyt.com/join to keep us afloat. And if there are any stories that we have missed on this medium of TYT Sports, get at me and follow me. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. DMs are open. Appreciate your suggestions.